In the middle of a busy street in Manila, a 12-year-old boy named Eli sat barefoot, wiping car windows with a torn cloth. No parents, no school, no future. Just hunger and hope. He lived under a broken bridge with his younger sister. She was sick. He had no money for medicine. But every day, he worked. Not for himself, for her. One evening, as the sun began to set, Eli saw a man rush out of a black SUV. He was surrounded by people, bodyguards, cameras, noise. The man dropped something on the ground without noticing. A brown leather wallet. Eli rushed to it, picked it up. It was heavy, full of cash, cards, documents. He opened it, and his eyes widened. Inside was an Manny Pacquiao. The name stunned him. He had heard the name before, the boxing champion, the hero, the legend. He had seen posters. He had seen him on TV screens in stores he couldn't enter. And now, he held his wallet. People around him hadn't noticed. He looked back at the car, already gone. Eli stood frozen. That wallet could feed his sister for months. That wallet could change his life. But deep inside, something told him, this is not mine. He walked for over an hour to reach the nearest police station. He handed the wallet to the officer and said just one thing. Please, give this back to Mr. Manny. It's important. The officer was stunned. They opened the wallet, counted over 500,000 pesos in cash. No one could believe the boy didn't take a single peso. The next morning, Manny Pacquiao himself walked into that station. He had realized his wallet was missing late that night. When the officer handed it back and told him the story, Manny didn't believe it at first. A street kid found this and gave it back? Yes, sir, the officer replied. His name is Eli. He didn't touch a thing. Manny went silent. Then he asked just one question. Where's the boy now? 2 hours later, Manny arrived at the broken bridge. His guards tried to stop him. The area was unsafe, crowded. But he ignored them. He walked alone, into the dirt, the smell, the darkness. And there, under a sheet of plastic, sat Eli, feeding his little sister bread soaked in water. Manny didn't speak, he just watched. Then Eli looked up. His eyes widened. He stood up slowly, scared, confused. Manny stepped forward. You found something that belonged to me, he said gently. Eli nodded. I wanted to give it back, because I know how it feels to lose something. Manny was silent. Then Eli said something that broke him. Can you please help my sister get medicine? I don't want money, just help her live. Manny turned away. His eyes filled with tears. Not because he lost his wallet, not because of the boy's honesty, but because, years ago, he had been that boy. Manny Pacquiao stood there in silence, in front of a broken child under a bridge, with nothing but love in his eyes. He thought of his own past, how he had once sold donuts on the streets, how he had fought hunger, fought shame, fought life, with bare fists and burning dreams. And now, this boy, a boy who could have stolen from him, but chose honesty, a boy who didn't ask for money, didn't ask for fame. He asked for something no child should ever have to ask for. Please, help my sister live. Manny dropped to his knees. He placed his hand on Eli's shoulder. And for a moment, there were no cameras, no guards, no walls. Just one man who had once been a poor boy himself, looking into the eyes of another. I will help her, Manny whispered. And I'll help you too, starting today. Eli nodded. His hands were shaking. He couldn't believe what was happening. Manny stood up, looked around, and saw the truth. Hundreds of children like Eli, living forgotten, invisible to the world. He turned to his team. Get a doctor here now, and tomorrow bring a lawyer, a social worker, and a bus. The next 24 hours changed everything. By the next morning, Eli's sister was admitted into a private hospital. She was diagnosed with severe malnutrition and a lung infection. But the doctors were confident with medicine, care, and rest, she would survive. Manny sat beside her bed. He didn't send a manager. He came himself. He brought coloring books, told her stories, and made her laugh the first time in weeks. Eli stayed quiet, watching. That night, he finally asked, By you doing this for me? Manny smiled. Because once someone helped me, and I promised myself if I ever became successful, I would never forget where I came from. Eli nodded slowly. He still didn't understand everything, but he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Safe. News of the story broke across the country. Poor boy returns Manny Pacquiao's wallet, refuses reward, only asks for medicine. Millions shared the video. Millions cried, and thousands messaged Eli, calling him brave, pure, a real hero. But Eli didn't care about any of that. He only cared about one thing: his sister getting better. And she did. Within 2 weeks, she could sit up. She smiled again. She called Eli by his name, not in pain, but in joy. And that's when Manny came with more news. I want you to move, he said. I've bought a small house for your family. You will go to school. You'll eat 3 meals a day. And if you want, you can train in boxing, too. Eli was speechless. He had never seen a real bed, never used a toothbrush, never heard someone say, "This is yours." But now, everything was changing. 6 months later, Eli stood on stage, holding a certificate. He had passed his first year of school. He had learned to read, to write, to dream. Manny stood beside him, proud, silent. The crowd clapped, cameras flashed, but when Eli was asked to speak, he said something that shocked everyone. I didn't save Manny's wallet. I saved my own life by doing the right thing. And then he turned to Manny. Thank you for keeping your promise. Manny's eyes filled with tears, because deep down he remembered how it felt to wait for promises, and he had made sure this boy would never be left waiting again. But Ellie wasn't finished. As he grew, he asked Manny for one more thing. I want to help other kids like I was. Manny smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Together, they started a small foundation. They called it the Bridge Boys, for kids who once lived under bridges on streets in shadows. And Eli became its face. The boy who returned a wallet, who asked for nothing, who got everything, and gave it all back to others. Years later, Eli would tell his story on national TV. He'd be asked again and again, "What did you feel when you found that wallet?" His answer never changed. I felt powerful because I had a choice, and I chose honesty. He would look into the camera and say, "You don't need money to change your life. Sometimes you just need to do the right thing even when no one is watching." And every time he said it, people cried because they knew the boy under the bridge was never just a boy. He was proof that sometimes the smallest hearts carry the biggest strength. 3 years passed. Eli was no longer the barefoot boy under the bridge. He wore a school uniform now. He spoke English fluently. He could read contracts, answer emails, and give speeches. But most of all, he still remembered where he came from. And every weekend, no matter how busy life got, he visited the bridge where it all began. Not to remember the pain, but to remind himself the story wasn't over. Because for every Eli who got saved, there were hundreds still waiting. That's why Manny gave Eli something more than a house, food, or fame. He gave him a platform. Together, they started small, giving food bags, warm clothes, medicine. But soon, they had enough donations to build their first bridge school, right beside the same bridge Eli once called home. It was a simple building, 2 rooms, 20 chairs, a whiteboard. But to the kids, it felt like a palace. And to Eli, it was sacred. He walked in on opening day, stood in front of the first class, and said, "I don't come to teach you like a rich man. I come to teach you as someone who was you." No one in the room blinked, because they believed him. He wasn't just another speaker. He was living proof that a small act of honesty could rewrite your entire destiny. Soon, the story reached international media. BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera. Street boy turns down fortune, builds school with boxing legend Manny Pacquiao. Eli started receiving letters from kids in Nigeria, Brazil, Pakistan, even New York. They had all seen his viral clip. The moment he gave the wallet back. The moment he said, "Help my sister, not me." and it changed something in them. One girl in Brooklyn wrote, "I was going to steal today. I was desperate. But then I saw your story, and I decided to wait one more day. Thank you for saving me." Eli cried, reading it, because now he understood. He hadn't just saved his sister, he had started a ripple. But with recognition came pressure. At age 15, Eli was invited to speak at a major charity gala in Singapore. He had never left the Philippines before, never flown on a plane, never stood in a room with billionaires. He was terrified. Backstage, he called Manny. "I can't do this," he whispered. "They're rich, they're powerful, I'm just a street kid." Manny replied with just 3 words. "So was I." That night, Eli walked on stage with trembling hands. He looked at the audience, silent, cold, curious. And he began, "I am not asking you to give money out of guilt. I am asking you to invest in someone like me, because someone once did, and I never forgot." He paused, then added, "And I promise you this, the return on that kindness is greater than gold." The room went silent, then erupted in applause. That night alone, they raised enough funds to build 5 new bridge schools. But as the world praised him, Eli stayed grounded. He still swept floors at the center. He still hugged every child who cried. He still prayed every night, not for success, but for strength. And one day, he went to Manny and said, "I want to tell the full story, not just about the wallet, but about how you came back for me when the world wouldn't." Manny smiled. He took Eli to a small village where he had grown up. No shoes, no power, 1 meal a day. He showed Eli his first boxing gym, just a wooden post and a tire hanging from a tree. "This is where I trained," Manny said. "People laughed at me. They said I'd never leave this place." He turned to Eli. "But you believed in me before you even knew me." And then Manny said something he had never told anyone. "The day you returned my wallet, I had just lost someone close. I was questioning everything, fame, money, even God. But your honesty reminded me why I fight." That moment changed Eli. He wasn't just a survivor now. He was a symbol, not of perfection, but of potential. He began mentoring street kids himself, boys who had stolen, girls who had been abandoned, teens addicted to drugs. He didn't preach. He just listened, sat with them, shared bread, shared silence. And slowly, they changed too. One rainy night, Eli stood under that same bridge, now taller, stronger, wiser. He looked up at the kids huddled together, sleeping on cardboard, and he whispered, "I promise you will not be forgotten," just like he hadn't been. And somewhere far away, Manny watched the news, tears in his eyes again. Not because Eli was on TV, but because he had kept his word. It had been 5 years since Eli returned that wallet. He was no longer just a boy with a story. He was now a voice, a leader, a name. Bridge Boys Foundation had built 12 schools. Over 3,000 children were studying across the country. He was invited to international conferences. He had his own office. And yet, he still wore the same beat-up bracelet his sister gave him the day she left the hospital. A reminder, never forget who you were before they praised you. But then, everything changed. One morning, Eli woke up to a headline that shook the entire nation. Bridge Boys funds misused, Eli under fire for financial misconduct. It was everywhere, TV, radio, Facebook. Anonymous sources claimed the donations weren't reaching the kids, that Eli had secretly bought a car, that he was flying first class on donor money. The media didn't wait for facts. They wanted flames. Comment sections turned ugly. Just another greedy kid in a suit. We knew he was too good to be true. Where's Manny Pacquiao now? For the first time since he was a child, Eli felt helpless. He hadn't stolen anything. He hadn't touched a peso for himself. But no one wanted to hear that. Even some sponsors pulled out. 2 schools had to pause construction. And the worst part? He started to doubt himself. Manny called him that night. "I believe you," he said firmly. "You don't owe me an explanation. But you owe one to yourself. Eli broke down. They're tearing everything down, Kuya. I'm trying to do good. Why does this keep happening to people like us? Manny didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he said, because we remind them that honesty is possible. And that scares the ones who aren't. The next day, Eli did something the world didn't expect. He walked into a press room, alone. No lawyers, no agents, no PR team. He faced the cameras, raised his voice, and said, I have nothing to hide. He opened every document, every receipt, every transaction. He let reporters ask whatever they wanted. And when it was over, there was nothing. No crime, no luxury car, no stolen peso. The media had twisted a school bus purchase into a luxury vehicle. His economy flights were booked by donors who wanted him present. Eli ended the press conference with just one sentence. You questioned the money, but did you ever ask what the mission was worth? The room was silent. Then, applause. Within 48 hours, all accusations were dropped. Responses returned. 3 new donors joined. But more than that, the public apologized for doubting, for attacking, for forgetting that even heroes are human. That night, Eli went back to the first bridge again. A group of kids ran up to him. Kuya Eli, we saw you on TV. One boy, maybe 8 years old, held out a wrinkled paper. It was a drawing. Eli, standing tall, wearing a cape made of books. You're our hero, the boy said. And for the first time in days, Eli smiled. Because even when the world turns its back, the ones who really matter don't. Later, Manny sat with Eli on a rooftop. Manila lights blinking beneath them, the air quiet. You passed the real test, Manny said. Which one? Eli asked. The test of staying clean when no one believed you. Eli nodded. I didn't return your wallet for fame, he whispered. I just didn't want to become the kind of man who takes what isn't his. Manning smiled. And now, you're becoming the man I always hoped you would. But Eli had one more thing to do. He returned to the press one last time and said something the world never forgot. You tried to cancel me over lies, but I forgive you, because if I don't, I become what you thought I was. And I refuse to be that. I am not bitter, I'm just better now. Years had passed. Eli was now a young man, still humble, still walking the same dusty streets when no one was watching, still returning to that one bridge where everything began. Only now, the bridge had changed too. It wasn't a place of silence anymore. It was loud, joyful, full of children in uniforms. The same street where Eli once begged was now a playground for hope. His foundation, Bridge Boys, had gone global. They had schools in Kenya, India, Brazil, and even small communities in the US. People didn't just donate anymore. They volunteered, they built, they believed. And yet, Eli never forgot the moment that started it all. One wallet, one choice, one simple request, help my sister, not me. But life had one more story waiting for him. A story Eli thought was buried forever. It came one morning, a letter, no return address, just his name written in trembling handwriting. Inside, a photograph, faded, torn, but unmistakable. A man, skinny, dark-haired, wearing a soldier's uniform, holding a baby, Eli. And behind it, 3 words. I'm sorry, son. His heart stopped. His legs gave way. He hadn't seen his father since he was 5. All those years, he thought he was abandoned, that he didn't matter, that his father had just walked away. But now, something opened in him, and after so many years of searching, this time he knew exactly where to go. The next day, he flew to Mindanao, a quiet village, far from the cities, off the grid. He didn't bring cameras, or guards, or anyone, just himself. And when he reached the small house made of wood and tin, a man stood outside, old, thin eyes heavy with regret. He looked up and dropped his cane. Eli, he whispered. Eli didn't speak. He just walked forward and hugged the man. No anger, no accusations. just years of silence, breaking all at once. His father cried into his shoulder. I was poor, ashamed. I thought, you'd grow better without me. Eli replied softly, I did grow, but not without pain. They talked for hours. About what could have been, about the past, about forgiveness. And for the first time in his life, Eli said, I love you, Dad. A week later, he returned to Manila. He had one more person to visit. Manny. By now, Manny was older, slower, retired from boxing, but still sharp, still strong, still fighting for people, not belts. They sat in his garden, 2 generations, 2 stories forever connected. Manny handed Eli a box. Inside was the same wallet, the one Eli had returned all those years ago. Why do you still have it? Eli asked. Manny smiled. Because when I lost it, I found you. Eli looked up, eyes full of emotion. What do I do now? He asked. I've built schools, helped people, but I still feel like it's just the beginning. Manny nodded. Because it is. My fight was in the ring, but your fight is in the world. You're not here to build one bridge. You're here to build thousands. A few months later, Manny stood on stage announcing his full retirement. And who did he bring up with him? Eli. He handed him the mic and said, I started by fighting for survival. He continues by fighting for change. This is the new champion, not of boxing, but of hearts. Today, Eli's story is part of textbooks. His foundation has helped over 100,000 children, and he still visits the bridge once a month. One day, a little girl tugged at his coat. Kuya Eli, she said. Why are you always smiling? He knelt down and replied, because once I had nothing, and now I get to give everything. How an act of honesty changed his life. What would you have done? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories that touch the heart.